Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. I was just talking to the spiritual sadhus and saints that have come every day to hear. I say that not lightly because anybody who has a taste to hear the Srimad-Bhagavatam every day like this, like they do, they deserve to be recognized for what they are, saintly persons. And we were just talking about how now there's so many problems in the world. There's this virus that's going around, and even worse than the virus is the influenza this year. And it's, we have a spiritual body, we have a subtle body, and we have a gross body. And we have to feed the physical body to keep it going and do all the other things we have to do to maintain our body. But we need also, the subtle body needs nourishment. If the subtle body doesn't get nourishment, then the mind becomes disturbed. And then the things that go on around us, and it's getting worse and worse, politically, economically, socially, in every way. And we can't maintain our equilibrium, and then we can't remember and go forward in our spiritual lives. So we're lucky. Count our blessings, as Radhanath Maharaj always says. The cornerstone of our house of bhakti is the feeling of gratitude. So we should absorb ourselves in the feeling of gratitude and hear about Krishna in that mood. Okay, Srimad-Bhagavatam Mahima Stotram. Luckily we have the previous acharyas who are very real saintly persons, deep saintly persons, and they have written so many things to help us, to guide us, and to inspire us. So one of those things is written by Srila Sanatana Goswami, one of the 6 Goswamis, the senior Goswami of the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, taught directly by Lord Chaitanya and sent to Vrindavan to renovate Vrindavan and write transcendental literatures. And this is one of the things he wrote. It's called Srimad-Bhagavatam Mahima Stotram. It's the glories of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, and it goes like this. Sarva Shastra Vipayusa Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of all conclusive truths. You are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad-Bhagavata Prabho Kalidvandodita Ditya Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad-Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Shri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshaksharayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours out a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Shri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madgudo Man Mahadana Man Nishtadaga Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu Saduta Dayin Adini Chochata Kada Hanamuncha Kada Chinmam Premna Rit Kantayos Buddha. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we've heard how the Hamsa avatar instructed Lord Brahma through the four Kumaras, and now we're moving on. And Krishna is continuing to give transcendental knowledge to Uddhava in great detail. Lord Brahma spoke this Vedic knowledge. This is text 4, chapter 14 of Canto 11. Lord Brahma spoke this Vedic knowledge to his eldest son, Manu, and the 7 great sages, headed by Bhrigu Muni, then accepted the same knowledge from Manu. Purport. Everyone engages in a certain way of life based on one's own nature and propensities. Bhakti Yoga is the natural activity of one whose nature is completely purified by association with the Supreme Lord. Other processes are meant for those whose nature is still affected by the material modes, and thus such processes, along with their results, are themselves also materially contaminated. Devotional service to the Lord, however, is a pure spiritual process, and by executing it with a pure consciousness, one comes directly in touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who describes himself in the Bhagavad Gita 9.2 as Pavitram Idam Uttamam, the Supreme Pure. The system of Parampara, or disciplic succession, is illustrated in this and the previous verse. The spiritual masters in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement are part of such a disciplic succession, and through them, the same Vedic knowledge spoken by Brahma to Manu is still available. Text 5 through 7. From the forefathers, headed by Bhrigu Muni and other sons of Brahma, appeared many children and descendants who assumed different forms as demigods, demons, human beings, guyakas, siddhas, gandharvas, vidyadharas, charanas, kindevas, kinnaras, nagas, kimpurushas, and so on. All of the many universal species, along with their respective leaders, appeared with different natures and desires generated from the 3 modes of material nature. Therefore, because of the different characteristics of the living entities within the universe, there are a great many Vedic rituals, mantras, and rewards. Purport. If one is curious why Vedic literatures recommend so many different methods of worship and advancement, the answer is given here. Bhrigu, Marichi, Atri, Angira, Pulastya, Pulaha, and Kratu are the 7 great Brahmana sages and forefathers of this universe. And the Kindevas are a race of human beings who are, like the demigods, completely free from fatigue, sweat, and body odor. Seeing them, one may thus ask, Kim Deva, are they demigods? Actually, they are human beings living on another planet within the universe. The Kinnaras are so called because they are kinchin nara, or a little like human beings. The Kinnaras have either a human head or human body, but not both, combined with a non-human form. The Kimpurushas are so called because they resemble human beings, and thus prompt the question, Kim Purusha, are these human beings? Actually, they are a race of monkeys who are almost like human beings. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that this verse describes the varieties of forgetfulness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The different Vedic mantras and rituals are especially meant for the different species of intelligent beings throughout the universe. But this proliferation of Vedic formulas indicates only the variety of material illusion and not a variety of ultimate purposes. The ultimate purpose of the many Vedic injunctions is one, to know and love the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord Himself is emphatically explaining this to Sri Uddhava. Text 8. Thus, due to the great variety of desires and natures among human beings, there are many different theistic philosophies of life, which are handed down through tradition. There are also teachers who directly support atheistic viewpoints. Purport. The word keshanchit refers to those persons in various parts of the world who are ignorant of the Vedic conclusion and thus concoct many unauthorized and ultimately fruitless philosophies of life. Pashanda Mataya refers to those who directly oppose the Vedic conclusion. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has given a most interesting example as follows. The water of the Ganges is always pure and very sweet. On the banks of that great river, however, there are several types of poisonous trees whose roots drink up the Ganges water from the soil and use it to produce poisonous fruits. Hey, Honest John, Haribol. How nice to see you. Let you off for a night, did they? On the banks of that great river, the water of the Ganges is always pure and very sweet. On the banks of that great river, however, there are several types of poisonous trees whose roots drink up the Ganges water from the soil and use it to produce poisonous fruits. Similarly, those who are atheistic or demoniac utilize their association with Vedic knowledge to produce the poisonous fruits of atheistic or materialistic philosophy. Text 9. O best among men, the intelligence of human beings is bewildered by my illusory potency, and thus, according to their own activities and whims, they speak in innumerable ways about what is actually good for people. Purport. Unlike the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the individual living entity is not omniscient. Therefore, his activities and pleasures do not represent the whole truth. According to one's individual way of doing things, yatha karma, and one's personal preference, yatha ruchi, one speaks to others about what is good for them. Everyone thinks what is good for me is good for everyone. Actually, the best thing for everyone is to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, and thus realize one's eternal nature of bliss and knowledge. Without knowledge of the absolute truth, many so-called learned people are whimsically advising other whimsical people who also lack perfect knowledge of the actual goal of life. Text 10. Some say that people will be happy by performing pious religious activities. Others say that happiness is attained through fame, sense gratification, truthfulness, self-control, peacefulness, self-interest, political influence, opulence, renunciation, consumption, sacrifice, penance, charity, vows, regulated duties, or strict disciplinary regulation. Each process has its proponents. Purport. Dharmam eke refers to those atheistic philosophers called karma mimamsakas, who state that one should not waste time worrying about a kingdom of God that no one has ever seen and from which no one has ever returned. Rather, one should expertly utilize the laws of karma, performing fruitive activities in such a way that one will always be well situated. Concerning fame, it is said that as long as the fame of a human being is sung in the pious planets, He may live for thousands of years in material heaven. Kamam refers to Vedic texts like the Kama Sutra, as well as millions of modern books that advise one about sex pleasure. Some people state that the highest virtue in life is honesty. Others say it is self-control, peace of mind, and so on. Each viewpoint has proponents and scriptures. Others say that law, order, and morality are the highest good, whereas still others propose political influence as the real interest of human beings. Some state that one should give away one's material possessions to the needy. Others state that one should try to enjoy this life as far as possible. And others recommend daily rituals, disciplinary vows, penances, and so on. Text 11. All the persons I have just mentioned obtain temporary fruits from their material work. Indeed, the meager and miserable situations they achieve bring future unhappiness and are based on ignorance. Even while enjoying the fruits of their work, such persons are filled with lamentation. Purport. Those who have grasped temporary material things, mistaking them to be ultimate reality, are not considered very intelligent by anyone except themselves. Such foolish persons are always in anxiety, because by the laws of nature, the very fruits of their work are constantly being transformed in ways neither desired nor expected. The performer of Vedic rituals can elevate himself to heavenly planets, whereas one who is atheistic has the privilege of transferring himself to hell. The entire panorama of material existence is actually uninteresting and dull, mandaha. One can make no real progress within the material world. Therefore, one should take to Krishna consciousness and prepare oneself to go back home, back to Godhead. Text 12. O learned Uddhava, those who fix their consciousness on me, giving up all material desires, share with me a happiness that cannot possibly be experienced by those engaged in sense gratification. Purport. The actual purport of Vedic knowledge is explained in this verse. The word Vishayatmanam includes those who are cultivating material peace of mind, self-control, and speculative knowledge. But even if such persons rise to the platform of Sattva-guna, the mode of goodness, they do not attain perfection, because Sattva-guna, being material, is also part and parcel of Maya, or illusion. As stated by Sri Narada Muni, Kim va yogina sankhena nyasa swadhyayayorapi kim va shreyobir anyaischa na yatratma prado harihi. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is not inclined to award himself even to one who executes the yoga system, speculative philosophy, the renounced order of life, or Vedic studies. Indeed, no so-called materially auspicious process can induce the Lord to reveal himself. Bhagavatam 4:31-12. According to Srila Sridhar Swami, one enjoys the happiness spoken of in this verse while associating in one's own spiritual body with the supreme transcendental form of the Lord. The Lord's transcendental form is filled with infinite, wonderful qualities, and the happiness of being with the Lord is unlimited. Unfortunately, materialistic people cannot possibly imagine such happiness, since they are not at all inclined to love the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 13. One who does not desire anything within this world, who has achieved peace by controlling his senses, whose consciousness is equal in all conditions, and whose mind is completely satisfied in me, finds only happiness wherever he goes. Purport. A devotee who is always meditating upon Lord Krishna experiences transcendental sound, touch, form, flavor, and aroma in the pastimes of the Lord. These sublime perceptions are certainly due to the causeless mercy of Lord Krishna upon one whose mind and senses are completely satisfied in him. Such a person finds only happiness wherever he goes. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives the example that when a very wealthy man travels all over the world, at every place he stays, he always enjoys the same luxurious standard of comfort. Similarly, one who has developed Krishna consciousness is never separated from happiness, because Lord Krishna is all-pervading. The word kinchana indicates the so-called enjoyable things of this world. One who is akinchana has correctly understood that material sense gratification is simply the glare of illusion, and therefore such a person is dantasya, or self-controlled, shantasya, or peaceful, and maya santushta manasa, or completely satisfied with his transcendental experience of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 14. One who has fixed his consciousness upon me desires neither the position or abode of Lord Brahma or Lord Indra, nor an empire on the earth, nor sovereignty in the lower planetary systems, nor the eightfold perfection of yoga, nor liberation from birth and death. Such a person desires me alone. Purport. The position of the akinchana, pure devotee, is described in this verse. Sri Priyavrata Maharaj is an example of a great devotee who was not interested in universal sovereignty because his love was completely absorbed in the lotus feet of the Lord. Even the greatest material enjoyment appears most insignificant and useless to a pure devotee of the Lord. Text 15. My dear Uddhava, neither Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Lord Sankarshan, the goddess of fortune, nor indeed my own self is as dear to me as you are. Purport. The Lord is described in the previous verses, the unalloyed love of his pure devotees for him. And now the Lord describes his love for his devotees. Atmayoni means Lord Brahma, who is born directly from the Lord's body. Lord Shiva always gives great pleasure to Lord Krishna by his constant meditation upon him, and Sankarshan, or Balaram, is the Lord's brother in Krishna Lila. The goddess of fortune is the Lord's wife, and the word Atma here indicates the Lord's own self as the deity. None of these personalities, even the Lord's own self, are as dear to him as his pure devotee Uddhava, an akinchana devotee of the Lord. Srila Madhvacharya cites from Vedic literature the example that a gentleman sometimes neglects his own interest and that of his children to give charity to a poor beggar. Similarly, the Lord gives preference to a helpless devotee who depends completely on his mercy. The only way to obtain the Lord's mercy is through his causeless love, and the Lord is most lovingly inclined toward those devotees who are most dependent on him. Just as ordinary mothers and fathers worry more about their helpless children than about those who are self-sufficient. Thus, even if one lacks any material qualification, one should simply depend upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead without any other interest, and surely one will achieve the highest perfection of life. Let that sink in for a second while Text 16. With the dust of my devotees' lotus feet, I desire to purify the material worlds, which are situated within me. Thus, I always follow the footsteps of my pure devotees, who are free from all personal desire, wrapped in thought of my pastimes, peaceful, without any feelings of enmity, and of equal disposition everywhere. This is a very famous verse, but Nirapeksham munim shantam nirvairam samadarshanam anubrajyam yaham nityam puye yet yang rirenubihi. With the dust of my devotees' lotus feet, I desire to purify the material worlds, which are situated within me. Thus, I always follow in the footsteps of my pure devotees, who are free from all personal desire, wrapped in thought of my pastimes, peaceful, without any feelings of enmity, and of equal disposition everywhere. Purport. Just as the devotees always follow the footsteps of Lord Krishna, similarly, Lord Krishna, being a devotee of his devotees, follows the footsteps of his devotees. A pure servitor of the Lord is always meditating on the pastimes of the Lord and considering how to assist the Lord in his mission. All the material universes are situated in Sri Krishna's body, as demonstrated to Arjuna, Mother Yashoda, and others. Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore there is no question of impurity in the Lord. Still, the Lord desires to purify the universes situated within him by taking the dust of the lotus feet of his pure devotees. Without the dust of the lotus feet of the devotees, it is not possible to engage in pure devotional service, without which one cannot directly experience transcendental bliss. Lord Krishna thought, I have established this strict rule that one can enjoy my transcendental bliss only through devotional service obtained from the dust of the lotus feet of my devotees. Since I also desire to experience my own bliss, I will observe the standard procedure and accept the dust of my devotees' feet. Srila Madhvacharya points out that Lord Krishna follows the footsteps of his devotees in order to purify them. As the Lord walks along behind his pure devotees, the wind blows the dust of the Lord's feet in the front of his devotees, who then become purified by contact with such transcendental dust. One should not foolishly look for material logic in these transcendental pastimes of the Lord. It is simply a question of love between the Lord and his devotees. I just let that sink in for a minute. The Lord follows his devotees. The Lord is the devotee of his devotee. So he decides that he wants the world to be purified by the dust of the feet of his pure devotees. In order to accomplish that, he follows behind his devotees, and the wind blows the dust from his feet out in front of the devotees, and they step on it. And then that dust purifies the world. Therefore, anyone who thinks that they can get love of God without the association of the pure devotees is living in hallucination. It's not possible. Because that's the will of the Lord. That's the way he arranged it. That's why it says at the end, don't try to figure this out. You know, you get some kind of calculator of wind and how that would happen and how there has to be a gust from here or there in order to do that. Or this is all love between the Lord and his devotees. Text 17. Those who are without any desire for personal gratification, whose minds are always attached to me, who are peaceful, without false ego, and merciful to all living entities, and whose consciousness is never affected by opportunities for sense gratification. Such persons enjoy in me a happiness that cannot be known or achieved by those lacking such detachment from the material world. Purport. The pure devotees always experience transcendental bliss in their service to Lord Krishna, to Sri Krishna, the reservoir of pleasure. Thus, they are completely detached from material pleasure and do not desire even liberation. Since all others have some personal desire, they cannot experience such happiness. Pure devotees always desire to give Krishna-conscious happiness to all others, and therefore they are called Mahanta, or great souls. In the course of a devotee's service, many opportunities for sense gratification arise, but a pure devotee is not tempted or attracted and does not fall down from his exalted transcendental position. Text 18. My dear Uddhava, if my devotee has not fully conquered his senses, he may be harassed by material desires. But because of his unflinching devotion for me, he will not be defeated by sense gratification. Purport. Abhibhuyate indicates falling down into the material world and being defeated by Maya. But even though one's senses are not fully conquered, one who has unflinching devotion to Lord Krishna does not run the risk of being separated from him. The words pragalbhaya bhaktya indicate a person who has great devotion for Lord Krishna and not one who desires to commit sinful activities and chant Hare Krishna to avoid the reaction. Because of previous bad habits and immaturity, even a sincere devotee may be harassed by lingering attraction to the bodily concept of life. But his unflinching devotion to Lord Krishna will act. Does anybody want to hear that again? Anyway, I want to hear it again. I'm going to read it, whether you want to hear it again. I'm going to read this again. The words pragalbhaya bhaktya indicate a person who has great devotion for Lord Krishna and not one who desires to commit sinful activities and chant Hare Krishna to avoid the reaction. Because of previous bad habits and immaturity, even a sincere devotee may be harassed by lingering attraction to the bodily concept of life. But his unflinching devotion for Lord Krishna will act. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives the following two examples. A great warrior may be struck by the weapon of his enemy, but because of his courage and strength, he is not killed or defeated. He accepts the blow and goes on to victory. Similarly, one may contract a serious disease, but if he takes the proper medicine, he is quickly cured. If those who follow the impersonal system of speculation and austerity deviate even slightly from their path, they fall down. A devotee, however, even though immature, never falls from the path of devotional service. Even if he displays occasional weakness, he is still considered a devotee if his devotion to Lord Krishna is very strong. As the Lord states in Bhagavad Gita 9:30, Apichet sududacharo bhajate mam ananyabhak sadureva samantavyak samyag vyavasito hisaha. Even if one commits the most abominable actions, If he is engaged in devotional service, he is to be considered saintly because he is properly situated. Text 19. My dear Uddhava, just as a blazing fire turns firewood into ashes, similarly, devotion unto me completely burns to ashes sins committed by my devotees. Purport. One should carefully note that the Lord refers to devotion that is like a blazing fire. To commit sinful activity on the strength of chanting the holy name is the greatest offense, and the devotion of one who commits this offense cannot be compared to a blazing fire of love for Krishna. As stated in the previous verse, a sincere loving devotee, because of immaturity or previous bad habits, may be disturbed by his senses, even though he has accepted Lord Krishna as the only goal in his life. But if even by chance the devotee accidentally falls down without premeditation or indifference, the Lord immediately burns to ashes his sinful reactions, just as a blazing fire immediately consumes an insignificant piece of wood. Lord Krishna is glorious, and one who takes exclusive shelter of the Lord receives the unique benefit of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Haribo, Bhakti Yoga Ki Jai. Text 20. My dear Uddhava, the unalloyed devotional service rendered to me, it's right. My dear Uddhava, the unalloyed devotional service rendered to me by my devotees brings me under their control. I cannot be thus controlled by those engaged in mystic yoga, Sankhya philosophy, pious work, Vedic study, austerity, or renunciation. Purport. One may make Krishna the goal of mystic yoga, Sankhya yoga, etc., yet such activities do not please the Lord as much as direct loving service, which one practices by hearing and chanting about the Lord and executing his mission. Okay, I'm going to read that again. One may make Krishna the goal of mystic yoga, Sankhya philosophy, etc., yet such activities do not please the Lord as much as direct loving service, by which one practices by hearing and chanting about the Lord and executing his mission. Srila Rupa Goswami states, Jnana karmadhyanavritam. A devotee should simply depend on Krishna and not unnecessarily complicate his loving service with tendencies toward fruitive work or mental speculation. The residents of Vrindavan simply depend on Lord Krishna. When the great serpent Aghasura appeared in the precincts of Braja, the cowherd boys, completely confident in their friendship with Lord Krishna, fearlessly marched into the serpent's gigantic mouth. Such pure love for Krishna brings the Lord under control, under the control of the devotee. 21. Only by practicing unalloyed devotional service with full faith in me can one obtain me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I am naturally dear to my devotees, who take me as the only goal of their loving service. By engaging in such pure devotional service, even the dog-eaters can purify themselves from the contamination of their low birth. Purport. Sambhavat indicates jati doshat, or the pollution of low birth. Jati dosha does not refer to mundane social, economic, or professional status, but rather to one's degree of spiritual enlightenment. All around the world, many people are born into rich and powerful families, but they often acquire abominable habits that are a part of their so-called family tradition. However, even unfortunate persons who are taught from birth to engage in sinful activities can at once be purified by the potency of pure devotional service. Such service must have Lord Krishna as the only goal. Manishta must be rendered with full faith, shraddhaya, and must be unalloyed or without any selfish motivation, ekaya. 22. Neither religious activities endowed with honesty and mercy, nor knowledge obtained with great penance can completely purify one's consciousness if they are bereft of loving service to me. Purport. Although pious religious work, truthfulness, mercy, penances, and knowledge partially purify one's existence, they do not take out the root of material desires. Thus, the same desires will reappear at a later time. After an extensive program of material gratification, one becomes eager to perform austerities, acquire knowledge, perform selfless work, and in general purify one's existence. After sufficient piety and purification, however, one again becomes eager for material enjoyment. When clearing an agricultural field, one must uproot the unwanted plants. Otherwise, with the coming of rain, everything will grow back as it was. Pure devotional service to the Lord uproots one's material desires, so that there is no danger of relapsing into a degraded life of material gratification. In the eternal kingdom of God, loving reciprocation between the Lord and His devotees is manifest. One who has not come to this stage of enlightenment must remain on the material platform, which is always full of discrepancies and contradictions. Thus, everything is incomplete and imperfect without loving service to the Lord. Text 23. If one's hairs do not stand on end, how can the heart melt? And if the heart does not melt, how can tears of love flow from the eyes? If one does not cry in spiritual happiness, how can one render loving service to the Lord? And without such service, how can the consciousness be purified? Purport. Loving service to the Lord is the only process that can completely purify one's consciousness. Such service produces waves of ecstatic love that completely cleanse the soul. As mentioned earlier by Lord Krishna to Sri Uddhava, other processes such as self-control, pious activities, mystic yoga, penances, etc., certainly purify the mind, as stated in many authorized literatures. Such processes, however, do not completely remove the desire to perform forbidden activities. But pure devotional service, rendered in love of Godhead, is so powerful that it burns to ashes any obstacle encountered on the path of progress. The Lord has stated in this chapter that loving service to Him is a blazing fire that burns to ashes all impediments. In contrast, the small fires of mental speculation or mystic yoga can be extinguished by sinful desires at any moment. Thus, by hearing Srimad-Bhagavatam, one should ignite the blazing fire of loving service to the Lord and burn to ashes the network of material illusion. Haribo, Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, pure devotional service ki jai. Text 24. A devotee whose speech is sometimes choked up, whose heart melts, who cries continually and sometimes laughs, who feels ashamed and cries out loudly and then dances. A devotee thus fixed in loving service to me purifies the entire universe. Purport. Vag Gadgada refers to a highly emotional state in which the throat is choked up and one cannot express oneself. Vilaja indicates that a devotee sometimes feels embarrassment due to bodily functions and memories of past sinful activities. In this condition, a devotee loudly cries out the holy name of Krishna and sometimes dances in ecstasy. As stated here, such a devotee purifies the three worlds. By melting of the heart, one becomes very steady in spiritual life. Normally, one whose heart easily melts is thought to be unsteady. But because Lord Krishna is the stable foundation of all existence, one whose heart melts in love of Krishna becomes most stable and cannot be disturbed by opposing arguments, bodily suffering, mental problems, supernatural disasters, or the interference of envious persons. I gotta read that one again. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. It just keeps getting better. Every time we say, well, it doesn't get any better than this, and then it just keeps getting better. Anandam Buddhivardhanam. By melting of the heart, one becomes very steady in spiritual life. Normally, one whose heart easily melts is thought to be unsteady. But because Lord Krishna is the stable foundation of all existence, one whose heart melts in love of Krishna becomes most stable and cannot be disturbed by opposing elements, arguments, bodily suffering, mental problems, supernatural disasters, or the interference of envious persons. Because such a devotee is fixed in loving service to the Lord, he becomes the very heart of the personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna. Text 25. Just as gold, when smelted in fire, gives up its impurities and returns to its pure, brilliant state, similarly, the spirit soul absorbed in the fire of Bhakti Yoga is purified of all contamination caused by previous fruitive activities and returns to its original position of serving me in the spiritual world. Purport. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur, this verse indicates that the devotee goes back home, back to Godhead, and there worships Lord Krishna in the original spiritual body, which is compared to the original pure form of smelted gold. Gold alloyed with inferior metals cannot be purified by water and soap. Similarly, the heart's impurities cannot be removed by superficial processes. Only the fire of love of Godhead can cleanse one's soul and send one back home, back to Godhead, to engage in eternal loving service to the Lord. Text 26. When a diseased eye is treated with medicinal ointment, it gradually recovers its power to see. Similarly, as a conscious living entity cleanses himself of material contamination by hearing and chanting the pious narrations of my glories, he regains his ability to see me, the absolute truth, in my subtle spiritual form. Purport. The Lord is called Sukshmam because he is pure spiritual consciousness, without any tinge of material energy. If one chants and hears the holy name and glories of Krishna with great sincerity, there is immediately a transcendental effect. We can immediately see the spiritual world and pastimes of the Lord if we fully surrender to the process mentioned here. A blind person feels perpetual gratitude to a doctor who restores his sight. Similarly, we sing Chakshu Dana Dilo Ye Janme Janme Prabhu Se. The bona fide spiritual master, the representative of Lord Krishna, restores our spiritual sight, and thus he is our eternal Lord and Master. Text 27. The mind of one meditating upon the objects of sense gratification is certainly entangled in such objects. But if one constantly remembers me, then the mind is absorbed in me. Purport. One should not think that one can attain complete transcendental knowledge of Krishna by mechanically engaging in worship of the Lord. Lord Krishna states here that one must endeavor constantly to keep the Lord within one's mind. Anusmarata, or constant remembrance, is possible for one who always chants and hears the glories of Lord Krishna. It is therefore stated, Shravanam Kirtanam Smaranam. The process of devotional service begins with hearing, Shravanam, and chanting, Kirtanam, from which remembrance, Smaranam, develops. One who constantly thinks of the objects of material gratification becomes attached to them. Similarly, one who constantly keeps Lord Krishna within his mind becomes absorbed in the Lord's transcendental nature, and thus becomes qualified to render personal service to the Lord in his own abode. Text 28. Therefore, one should reject all material processes of elevation, which are like the mental creations of a dream. One should completely absorb one's mind in me. By constantly thinking of me, one becomes purified. Purport. The word bhavitam means caused to be. As explained in the Bhagavad Gita, material existence is an unstable platform subject to the constant disturbances of creation and annihilation. One who absorbs his consciousness in Krishna, however, attains to Krishna's nature and is therefore described as Madbhava Bhavitam, or one situated in real existence because of Krishna consciousness. The Lord here concludes his analysis of different processes of human perfection. I'll stop the reading tonight there. That's deep and rich and sweet. Sobering. Okay, it's time for our daily dose of open mic realizations. I can see, I feel the atmosphere, it's so intense, you know. Everybody's going deep into this, you know. It's so nice. But there's one point here that you always have to remember, because I know what we're all thinking. My God, how can I possibly do that? I mean, I'm constantly thinking of this and thinking of that, and you know, I'm so contaminated, and I'm so this, and I'm so that, and I'm so this, and I'm so that. But we have to remember this one thing, that even if that's still there, if our faith in Krishna stays fixed, and we chant every day, and we hear every day, then those other things are completely insignificant to Krishna. Therefore, in the teachings of the Goswamis, they never say, oh, now I've seen Krishna, They're always thinking, when will I see Krishna? When will I see Krishna? So this is the process. The process is to Hare Krishna. See ya. The process is to develop the hankering to come to that platform. And as Rupa Goswami says, the hankering to come to that platform is not different from being there. He says, if you want to live in this material world safely, make it your ambition to serve Krishna like this. It's not some light statement. Make it your ambition to serve Krishna like this, like Krishna is explaining to Uddhava right here. Hanker to think of Krishna always, even if it seems impossible at the moment because of our material conditioning. And then we won't become depressed by our inability to do it right now. Just the hankering for it controls Krishna. And he's there to help us. And all the Vaikuntha Walas, as Sanatana Goswami describes in Priya Bhagavatamrita. Vaikuntha Walas are always coming here to help us. We can't see them, but they're always helping us in different ways. Yes, Honest John. We've been just sitting here hankering, waiting for when you were going to come back and lighten us up here.
Well, I was going to highlight like, oh, this was good, this was good, this was good, but I pretty much started taking shots of everything on this, so there's a lot of stuff in here, a lot of good stuff. But
oh yeah.
The one that I liked the best was, O learned Uddhava, those who fix their consciousness on me, giving up all material desires, share with me a happiness that cannot possibly be experienced by those engaged in sense gratification. And the actual purport of Vedic knowledge is explained in this verse. So I thought that was pretty good. If that's the actual purport of Vedic knowledge, then we better remember that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why every once in a while I had to stop. It just was just overwhelming. I had to stop, hear it again, let it sink in, hear it again. It's amazing how the verses flow, from one level to another and just take you there. It's like you get, you're like in a river, and even if you don't want to go, the current just whoops, it takes you there. Even if you're trying to go the other way, no, you're going to go the way you're supposed to go. Go ahead. I mean, I can see that you've taken so many notes over there. You got a whole, all your memory is already taken up by them.
Well, there's so much good stuff
I know.
in here. Well, another important one that I thought was good for with the dust of my devotees' lotus feet, I desire to purify the material worlds which are situated within me. Thus I always follow the footsteps of my pure devotees, who are free from all personal desire, wrapped in thought of my pastimes, peaceful, without any feelings of enmity, and equal disposition everywhere. So it's important to find those people and hang around them, be with them.
Well, here we are. Here we are.
Well, that's why I come here to hang around with y'all. I'm definitely here you go.
We got something on the cyberspace. I think we need to hear.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Bhaktajan.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hare Krishna. Nice to see that you're.
It's like whenever what you need to hear is like, it was like when I came here, when we started reading this, it was like, wow. Mm-hmm. It's like whatever you need to hear,
It's right here. Yeah, exactly. exactly.
All right, we have two. One is just a nice comment by Sudevi Dasi.
One is from Sudevi Dasi. Hare Krishna, Sudevi. We haven't heard from you for a long time, but we've been feeling your separation.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my obeisances, glories to Srila Prabhupada, and your daily association. That's all. And then Shweta Dweep has a...
Shweta Dweep.
Yes.
Where the heck are you?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, while listening to verse 19 of this chapter, I was thinking that this is much straightforward than a similar verse in Bhagavad Gita 4:37. Not sure if this is due to deeper relationship of Krishna and Uddhava as compared to Krishna and Arjuna.
Does that have a question mark after it?
Yes.
I thought so. Let's look at this, should we? Shall we examine this? Would it be okay? Okay? Sure. All right, let's examine this. 437 and 19. What we just heard was 19. And 437 says, this is right after Tadvidi Pranipate, and then Yajgatva Punar Moham, and then Apiset Asipape Byo. So 36 is connected to it also. It's not just 37. 36 is also connected. The 37 is the one he's talking about. As blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge burn to ashes all reactions to material activities. And then the one before that, even if you are considered to be the most sinful of sinners, when you are situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, you will be able to cross over the ocean of miseries. So, yes, it is the same. It's exactly the same. Now read the 19.
19 is... My dear Uddhava, just as a blazing fire turns firewood into ashes, similarly, devotion unto me completely burns to ashes sins committed by my devotees.
Yes, it's exactly the same. But it is true that because Uddhava is more confidential friend, both Uddhava and Arjuna are confidential friends of Krishna, but Uddhava is more confidential because he stays with Krishna all the time, and Arjuna is sometimes with him and sometimes not, at least in his Prakat Leela in the material world. So plus, it was Uddhava that Krishna sent to give the message to the Brajbasis. So Uddhava was able to see the love of the Brajbasis, and therefore he can say things to Uddhava that he didn't say to Arjuna. What to speak of the fact that it was Krishna's will or Krishna's plan to leave Uddhava to go to Badrikashram and share with them the love that the Brajbasis, the complete love that the Brajbasis have for Krishna, spontaneous love. So yes, it is the same, but at the same time it's different in the sense that, the relationship is more intimate. But that doesn't mean that Arjuna's thinking, when will I be like Uddhava? Because Arjuna is eternally Arjuna, and Uddhava is eternally Uddhava. Even though he made that prayer, remember? May I take birth as a bush or in the bushes or whatever of Braj, so that, the devotees will step on me as they walk around. If I can just be a blade of grass. Yes, Prana.
I was just wondering, it seems like there's more of a personal touch when Krishna's speaking to Uddhava in this regard. because he's in the Bhagavad Gita, he's telling Arjuna that this transcendental knowledge will burn the reactions of your sinful activities. But Krishna here is saying that, I am personally, taking care of my devotees, even if they slip and fall. So it seems like, is it a difference between bhakti and gyan?
No. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There are people who think that Uddhava is a jnana yogi. Is contaminated with jnana, mishra bhakti.
Well, I was going to say, it seems like it seems like this statements in the Uddhava Gita are speaking more to the point of bhakti, direct. Whereas, like, if you read Prabhupada's purports to those verses, Prabhupada brings out the same purport of bhakti, but in the verses in the Gita, Krishna doesn't get talking about bhakti till
That's
later.
because he ended up bhaktyamam abhijanate. This is the same point that Krishna made to Uddhava that you're making.
Mm.
You're thinking. There's all kinds of people in the world, and Krishna's and speaking to all of them, both to Arjuna and to Krishna, and therefore you'll find all kinds of levels and all kinds of things, but it all comes to pure devotional service. But that pure devotional service is of different varieties, even in the spiritual world, different degrees of intimacy. Therefore, it's Sanatana Goswami in his Brihad Bhagavatamrita, when Narada is going through looking for the best devotee, he finally comes to, he goes to so many places. Brahman in the river, and then the king, and then Indra, and then Brahma, and then Shiva, and then one after the other, and finally ends up in Vaikuntha. Then he ends up, and then he comes to, and then he's told there that Prahlad Maharaj, he was going to go to see the goddess of fortune, but then, Shiva brings him, close to him, and he says, I don't want to say this to Parvati, because if I do, she'll be upset with me, but actually, there's somebody higher than goddess of fortune. Because Parvati started glorifying the goddess of fortune, right? So Shiva brought him over and said, oh, by the way, Prahlad is even more intimate than the goddess of fortune, so you should go to see him. Anyways, he went to him, and then he said, no, not me. I'm not the best devotee. Hanuman is, because he's doing actual service. I'm just meditating, I'm just thinking, and I was in trouble, and I just thought of the Lord, and here he came, and where is he now? He's gone, and So this is all pure. Then Hanuman said, no, not me. The Pandavas, they're like, look at the intimate service they're doing. And then he goes to see the Pandavas. And the Pandavas says, no, not us, the Yadus, because they're his family members, and they're always with him. We had a big war, now where is he? He went back to, to Dwarka, and he's with the Yadus. He's always with them. So he went there, and he went to the king of, to Ugrasena, and Ugrasena said, listen, if you want to see the best devotee of all of us, it's Uddhava. You go wherever Krishna is, go there, and you'll see Uddhava, because he never leaves his company. Then at the end, when they finally come to this whole discussion about the Brajbasis and how Krishna is actually thinking about them all the time, even when he's there in Dwarka, and there's a big debate about why doesn't he go back to see them, and some people, half of them take the side of the Brajbasis, and half of them take the side of the Dwarkavasis, and there's a whole thing. And then at the end, and Narada's just terrified because he thought he brought this whole, spiritual political kerfuffle upon everyone. He comes to Krishna and he says, now, maybe I can just hear it from your lips, who's the best? And Krishna says, don't you understand? Every single one of them you've met, they're all the best. Every one of them can deliver the whole universe. So pure love isn't like that it's only one kind of pure love for Krishna. There's unlimited souls, and there's unlimited desires and there's unlimited levels of bhakti and pure love, bhakti. So even though he admitted that the gopis were the most dear to him, he still put them all in the category of pure devotional service. Yes, Sarva.
There's one verse that's quite hopeful. 18. My dear Uddhava, if my devotee has not fully conquered his senses, he may be harassed by material desires, but because of his unflinching devotion for me, he will not be defeated by sense gratification. That was quite magnanimous.
Yeah, that was the point I was trying to make in the middle of the reading to everyone, because we all may be thinking, oh, tears flowing from the eyes and choked up, and I can't, and so far away, and I'll never get there, and I'm so fallen, and what can I do, and woe is me. But the fact is that those feelings are actually brought about by our love for Krishna. So if we just keep doing our devotional service, that is what Krishna wants to see. That is what convinces him that we love him, that our love is unflinching, if we do devotional service unflinchingly.
I like that point about the fighter.
About the...
Vishwanath.
Wait.
Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives in that purport about the warrior or something, how he gets struck.
Yes. Struck by a weapon.
Yeah, but he just bears the blow and then continues fighting to victory. And I thought that was pretty cool, because Prabhupada has written that it has, it's like a feat of heroism, actually, conquering Maya. It's like a declaring war on Maya, like that. So it was inspiring.
Well, there's that, and there's also, from the other side, it doesn't make any difference what comes your way, because you're in the material world and something's going to come your way. The impediments are there, built in. So we just don't let those impediments stop us from thinking of Krishna, and stop us from doing our service to our spiritual masters and to Krishna. And you do that every day. So you may say, oh yes, but I'm not completely absorbed. Yeah, but all I can see is that you guys are here every day. I'm here, reading every day. Something. And that's what pleases Krishna. That's what he's saying. If your faith is unflinching and you keep hearing about me steadily every day, we may not be, absorbed 24/7 and, stumbling around with tears coming out of our eyes and rolling on the ground and, on that level of exhibition of love. That's very rare. If we become depressed because we're not there, then that's not good. On the other hand, we can hanker for that and we can continue to hear. And then there's the verses that say, if you just hear, you can get it. Parikshit Maharaj, he got perfection just by hearing. Shukadev just by speaking. Hanuman just by serving. Or Krura just by praying. So if you become actually absorbed in any one of the 9 processes of devotional service, these are the activities of devotional service. So even if you're a neophyte, if you're absorbing yourself in those processes, you are a pure devotee. Pure devotee is defined by Srila Prabhupada in that sense by the lack of ulterior motive. If you don't have an ulterior motive for doing your service, if you're not doing it in order to get a cushy scene or in order to attract followers or whatever, some ulterior motive, or just until I get myself situated and then I can go and out in the material world and carve out some kind of big position for myself because of this knowledge or because of whatever. If we just keep doing this, for the rest of our lives, we will get everything. Yes.
I thought that was an interesting point too. That in one of the purports, it mentioned that one performs this pious religious life for some time after having excessive sense gratification.
Yeah.
And then getting sick of that, and then getting cleaned up in this pious. But then they get, one could get attracted to material enjoyment again because they say, okay, now I'm ready now. I'm ready to go enjoy the material world again.
Yes.
And I thought that was quite.
It's called Bhoga Tyaga.
Yeah.
Bhoga Tyaga. I'll do my austerity until I'm strong again, and then I can go out and enjoy for a little bit more, and then I get tired of that, and then I come to the Tyaga again. Then I come to the Bhoga again, and the Tyaga. But the pure devotional service doesn't go back and forth like that. It stays.
Is that because the motive is, there's no ulterior motive?
Yes.
I was going to read
Yeah, go ahead. Patrick, take us there.
Right. I really like this last part of a paragraph of the purport for text 15. Similarly, the Lord gives preference to a helpless devotee who depends completely on His mercy. The only way to obtain the Lord's mercy is through His causeless love, and the Lord is most lovingly inclined toward those devotees who are most dependent on Him, just as ordinary mothers and fathers worry more about their helpless children than about those who are self-sufficient. Thus, even if one lacks any material qualification, one should simply depend upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, without any other interest, and surely one will achieve the highest perfection of life. And it's just really nice, because I've been feeling myself, I need to cultivate the, I feel very self-sufficient, like I don't really have to ask how to do things or anything, I just kind of
Yeah, you already know.
Yeah. I don't know how, but I speculate my way through.
No, what Prabhupada uses the example, and it's such a classic, perfect, what happens when a baby comes into a family? Yeah, all the members of the family are just like always there with it and trying to, because they're helpless. And you just naturally get attracted. You want to be there and make sure they're okay. And so feeling helpless is not a bad thing. We're taught especially America, we're taught, hey, you're number one, you can do it. And it's almost like, negative thing to feel helpless, and therefore you got a bunch of egomaniacs bumping into one another, trying to, and then gradually they bump and careen like a slot machine or a bumper cars, and then who ends up at the top? Hare Krishna.
Morning drive to work.
Ah.
All those egos on the road.
Yeah, road rage. And they make their little environment in the car as nice as possible, with the latest stereo and, all the communication skills. You can talk to the world while you're, but, where are you going and where are you going to in order to do what? They don't think about that. Okay, that's it. It's after 7:30. I've got to go. We started the Gita this morning, by the way, kids. Yeah, started the Gita. So now we're into the introduction. Took a little administrative, to get the files the right, to set up, and we did the intro and the outro for the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's like a title page. You read the title page in the book, so there's like a title page that we read before, and then we read afterwards, and give credits for the, the recorders and the reader, the narrator, and the engineer, the sound editor, sound engineer. So now we're ready to go. Now we're going. we did about 16 pages today of the Gita. Going to try to do the Gita before we leave. I need some blessings because it's about 727 pages and we've got about 46 days, maybe 45 days now. So that means 16, 17 pages a day, every single day. Possible because sometimes we do 30, 40, even 50 sometimes. It's possible by the mercy of the Vaishnavas. Hare Krishna. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. For Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. The wonderful teachings of Krishna to Uddhava, the Uddhava Gita ki jai. See you tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Glories to Prabhupada.